The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet town, casting golden light across the streets. He had started his day like any other, sipping coffee and reading the morning news, when suddenly there was a soft knock at the door. He frowned, wondering who could be visiting so early. Opening the door, he froze in surprise. Standing on the porch were three young women, unlike any humans he had ever seen. Their skin shimmered slightly, their eyes glowed faintly, and their clothes looked delicate but strange. Behind them, a frail old woman leaned on a small cane, her face pale and tired, yet her eyes carried a quiet strength. We need shelter," the eldest sister said softly, her voice musical but tinged with fear. The human blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. I don't know," he stammered, glancing at the grandmother, who coughed weakly. "But I guess you can come in for a while." As they stepped inside, the house felt smaller and more ordinary than the world the sisters must have come from. The sisters moved with quiet grace, careful not to touch anything roughly, while the grandmother leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow, yet somehow dignified. He led them to the living room, unsure how to act. The sisters looked around curiously, their heads tilting as if studying every corner. Their eyes sparkled with a mix of awe and nervousness. The grandmother smiled faintly at him, and he felt a strange warmth in his chest. The sisters began helping her sit on the couch, their gestures careful and respectful. He noticed small things that seemed unusual. One of the sisters touched the window, and it shimmered briefly. Another placed her hand on a chair, and it straightened perfectly, almost as if they could control small parts of the world around them. The grandmother whispered something in a language he did not understand, and the sisters responded softly, nodding in agreement. He could not comprehend their words, but he felt their meaning: pleading, trust, and perhaps fear. He realized they were not here by choice alone. Something had driven them to his doorstep. He brought them food, something simple from his kitchen, and they ate slowly, their movements quiet and polite. He noticed how carefully they handled each item, almost as if it were precious. While they ate, he asked the grandmother gently, "Are you sick? Do you need a doctor?" The grandmother's hand shook slightly as she pointed to her chest, then smiled weakly. Her condition was worse than he had imagined, and he felt a pang of responsibility. The sisters exchanged worried glances, their faces pale with concern, yet they seemed relieved that he had offered help. As the morning passed, they began to talk, or at least try to communicate. Their words were strange, but gestures, smiles, and nods bridged the gap. He learned that the grandmother needed care, and the sisters had come to find a safe place to stay for a while. He felt a strange connection forming, as if fate had brought them together. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, and he could not shake the feeling that someone or something was watching. He glanced nervously at the sky, half expecting a ship to appear or some authority to arrive. Yet nothing happened, and slowly he began to relax, feeling that for now they were safe. The sisters moved closer to him, asking questions about the house, the town, and his life. Their curiosity was innocent but insistent, and he found himself answering, explaining, even laughing at small jokes they tried to mimic from his words. It felt strange, yet comforting, having them here, though he did not know why. By noon, the human realized that his life had shifted in a way he could not explain. The ordinary routine he had cherished suddenly seemed empty compared to the mysterious presence of these aliens and their fragile grandmother. He felt a strange excitement, tinged with worry, about the days ahead. The grandmother reached for his hand, her grip weak but steady. "Thank you," she whispered, and her eyes shone with gratitude. The sisters echoed her feelings, bowing slightly and smiling softly. He realized that even if he had only offered temporary shelter, this moment would change everything in his life. As the day moved forward, he prepared a small room for them, arranging blankets and pillows. He watched the sisters settle their grandmother gently, and for the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a life with these strangers in his home. He could not know what challenges or adventures awaited them, but he felt one thing clearly: nothing would ever be the same again. And as the sun set, casting a golden glow across the quiet house, he stood by the doorway, watching them, and a feeling of both awe and responsibility filled him. The unexpected arrival had turned an ordinary morning into a turning point, and deep inside, he knew that his life, his heart, and his world had begun to change forever. The morning after the unexpected arrival was quiet but full of curiosity. The human watched as the alien sisters moved carefully around the house, their movements graceful and precise. They spoke softly to their grandmother, helping her sit up and take small sips of water. The frail woman smiled faintly, and the human felt a warmth in his chest he had never known before. He decided to help them as best as he could, bringing food and blankets. Adjusting the room for their comfort, the sisters watched his every move, their eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and gratitude. One of them tilted her head, trying to mimic his gestures, and he laughed quietly, breaking the tension in the room. As the hours passed, small bonds began to form. The human showed them simple things about the house, like how to turn on lights and use the kitchen appliances. The sisters listened intently, asking questions with gestures and sounds that were new to him. Yet somehow, communication flowed easily between them, bridging worlds with simple actions and shared glances. He noticed strange things too, small displays of alien abilities that fascinated him. One sister touched a small lamp, and it glowed brighter. Another waved her hand over a plant, and it grew slightly taller. He realized that these aliens were not just fragile travelers. They carried knowledge and powers far beyond his world. Despite the wonder, there was also tension. The grandmother coughed weakly, and the sisters exchanged worried looks. They whispered in their language, their voices low but urgent. The human did not understand the words, yet the meaning was clear. This family needed care, protection, and trust. During breakfast, one of the sisters tried to speak a few words in his language. "Thank you," she said slowly, pointing at him. Her effort was awkward but heartfelt, and the human smiled, nodding. "You're welcome," he replied, feeling a strange pride. It was the first sign that real connection could grow between them. They spent the afternoon together, the sisters exploring the small house with wonder. Their laughter was soft, musical, and it echoed in the rooms like a gentle wind. The grandmother rested, her breathing easier now that she felt safe. The human realized that something extraordinary was happening, that these strangers, who had arrived as burdens, were slowly becoming part of his life. Small acts of care turned into moments of trust. The human helped the grandmother with her medicine. The sisters learned to cook simple meals with his guidance, and they all shared quiet moments by the window, watching the sky, pointing out birds or clouds. Their bond was subtle, growing with each smile, each gentle gesture, each laugh, yet there was always a hint of mystery and suspense. The sisters looked outside often, their eyes scanning the horizon. One of them whispered urgently to another, and they exchanged worried glances. The human felt a shiver run down his spine, sensing that danger or at least a challenge was not far away. In the evening, the human decided to take a small walk with the sisters and the grandmother, showing them the garden and the street beyond. The sisters were amazed at the simple things he had taken for granted. The grandmother smiled softly, leaning on his arm, and the human felt a strange connection, as if their lives had been tied together by invisible threads. They returned inside as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the small house. The sisters began telling small stories of their world, using gestures, lights, and soft sounds. The human listened, fascinated, and tried to understand, feeling a deep sense of responsibility for them all. By nightfall, they sat together in the living room, quiet but comfortable, the grandmother resting, the sisters leaning close to her, and the human watching them, feeling a bond forming that could not be explained. He realized that their arrival had already changed him, not just his daily routine, but his heart, his perspective, and his sense of purpose. He could feel it in the way the sisters looked at him with trust, the grandmother's soft smile, and the warmth that filled the house. This unexpected family had brought new meaning to his life, and he knew that the days ahead would bring even greater challenges, yet also greater rewards. And as he turned off the lights, letting the soft glow from the alien sisters fill the room, he whispered to himself, This is only the beginning. A strange family, an ordinary human, and a sick grandmother had come together, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, their lives were becoming one. The morning air was tense, filled with an unspoken warning. The human noticed the sisters moving cautiously around the house, their eyes scanning every shadow. The grandmother's breathing was weaker today, and worry clouded the human's thoughts. He could feel that something was coming, though he did not know what. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed from the street, sharp and metallic. The sisters stiffened, their glowing eyes flickering with alarm. The human stepped forward, heart pounding. "What is it?" he asked, but they only exchanged worried glances. One sister whispered something in her alien language, urgent and quick, and the grandmother's hand trembled as she gripped the table. Before he could react, a large figure appeared at the gate. Partially hidden by the morning fog, it was tall, imposing, and moved with precision. His instincts screamed danger, yet he could not understand the figure's intentions. The sisters moved closer to the grandmother, shielding her with their bodies, their expressions fierce despite their delicate forms. The human realized quickly that he had to act. He stepped in front of them, heart racing, trying to stay calm. You can't come in here," he said, voice trembling slightly, but firm. The figure paused, scanning the house with cold eyes, then spoke in a language he could not understand. Yet the tone was sharp, demanding, threatening. The sister's glow flared slightly, a protective aura surrounding the grandmother. The human felt a strange energy hum through the air, and he realized that these aliens were capable of more than he had imagined. He felt both fear and awe as the figure moved closer, its steps precise, but hesitant, as if sensing the protective bond around them. Suddenly, the youngest sister raised her hand, projecting a small barrier of shimmering light. The figure hesitated, stepping back, clearly surprised by the sudden display of power. The human's heart pounded as he watched, realizing that he was no longer just a bystander in his own home, but a participant in something far bigger. The grandmother coughed weakly, her voice barely audible. "Trust him," she whispered, and the sisters nodded, their expressions determined. The human felt a surge of courage, bolstered by their trust, and stepped closer to the figure. "I won't let you hurt them," he said firmly. Even though his voice quivered, a tense standoff followed, the fog thickening around the house. The figure studied them, as if weighing strength against will. The sisters held their positions, the youngest keeping the barrier steady, and the human stayed in front of them, his heart beating fast but steady. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to protect those you care about. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The figure finally backed away, leaving a warning in its posture, and disappeared into the fog. The sisters lowered their hands, their glow dimming but steady. The grandmother smiled faintly, her hand brushing his arm. "You did well," she whispered, a soft warmth in her eyes. The human sank into a chair, exhaustion and relief flooding him. He looked at the sisters, their faces still serious, yet showing faint relief. They had survived the first real test together, yet he knew it was only the beginning. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying distant sounds that hinted at more challenges ahead. He realized that his life had changed completely. The ordinary days he had cherished were gone, replaced by a world of wonder, danger, and responsibility. Yet despite the fear and uncertainty, he felt a strange exhilaration, a sense that he was exactly where he needed to be, protecting the aliens and their grandmother. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, the human and the sisters gathered near the window, watching the horizon carefully. The grandmother rested, breathing easier now, and the youngest sister reached out to hold his hand, a gesture of trust and partnership. He knew that the days ahead would bring more trials, more tension, and perhaps even greater danger. Yet in that quiet moment, he also understood the power of their bond. The sisters, the grandmother, and he were now connected in a way that could not be broken, and together they could face whatever came next. And as night fell, the human whispered softly to himself, "We will survive." Together, a fragile family of strangers had come into his life, and for the first time, he felt truly alive, ready to face conflict, danger, and the unknown with courage, trust, and heart. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting warm light across the small house. The human watched as the sisters carefully tended to their grandmother, their hands gentle, their eyes full of concern. Yet there was a quiet strength in the way they moved. He realized that he had been part of something extraordinary from the very first moment they arrived. After breakfast, the sisters approached him, their glowing eyes curious. We want to show you," said the eldest sister, pointing to a small device she carried. The human frowned, unsure what it was, but followed them outside to the garden, where sunlight highlighted the strange metallic device. The youngest sister touched the device lightly, and a small holographic map appeared, floating in the air. The map showed points of light that moved slowly, like stars in motion. The human gasped, realizing that this was not just a toy or decoration, but something far more advanced than anything he had seen. This is your world?" he asked, awe in his voice. The sisters nodded, their expressions proud but cautious. "It can help, heal," whispered the grandmother weakly, pointing to a glowing symbol on the device. The human's eyes widened, understanding that this family held secrets and powers that could change lives. Together, they began experimenting, showing him how the device could create warmth, light, and even accelerate small plants' growth in the garden. Each small demonstration filled the human with wonder and hope. The sisters laughed softly at his amazement, and for a moment, the house felt like a world of magic. While the human learned from them, the sisters learned from him as well. How to navigate Earth customs, how to cook simple meals, and even how to enjoy a small cup of tea. Their laughter echoed through the house, replacing the tension of the previous day with joy and companionship. Suddenly, one sister noticed a strange pattern of lights in the sky. Her eyes widened, and she whispered urgently to the others, pointing. The human followed her gaze and saw faint streaks of light approaching. Moving faster than any ordinary aircraft, he felt a shiver run down his spine, sensing that more challenges were coming. The sisters and the human worked quickly, using the device and their combined skills to hide the grandmother safely and prepare defenses. The human felt his heart race as adrenaline surged through him. Yet, even in the face of danger, he marveled at how much they had grown as a team in such a short time. Together, they created a small barrier of light around the garden, shielding the grandmother and themselves. The streaks of light moved closer, then slowed, as if sensing the protective energy. The human realized that their teamwork, trust, and the bonds they had formed were stronger than any outside threat. The grandmother smiled faintly, watching them. Her eyes filled with pride. "You have learned." Quickly, she whispered, her voice weak but steady. The human felt a surge of courage, knowing that he was no longer just a helper or protector, but part of this strange, wonderful family, and they were part of him. Hours passed as they trained, experimented, and shared quiet moments together. Each small success strengthened their connection, and each small act of care built trust and understanding. The human noticed how much he had changed. He was braver, more compassionate, and more open to the unknown. By evening, the immediate threat had passed, but the human knew that the challenges were not over. The sisters gathered near him and the grandmother, their hands brushing his as a silent gesture of unity. He realized that this was more than survival. It was the discovery of a new life, a new purpose, and a bond that could not be broken. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, the human and the sisters stood together in the garden, watching the stars appear. Their laughter and quiet conversations filled the air with hope and warmth. He understood that the misdelivery, the unexpected arrival, and the first moments of fear had all led to this a family, united by trust, care, and discovery. And as night fell, with the grandmother resting peacefully, the human whispered softly to himself, "We can face anything." Together, the sisters nodded, their hands brushing his, and he felt a deep, unshakable connection, a connection that had grown stronger with teamwork, discovery, and the courage to trust one another. The human knew that whatever came next, whatever danger or adventure awaited, they would face it as one. For in the strange arrival of alien sisters and their grandmother, he had found not just friends, but family, and together, they were ready to face the unknown, stronger than ever before. The morning air was crisp and filled with a quiet tension. The human sensed it immediately, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The sisters moved carefully, their glowing eyes scanning every shadow, while the grandmother leaned slightly on her cane, breathing shallowly yet firmly. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the garden, followed by a flash of light in the distance. The human's heart pounded as he realized the threat from before had returned. This time it was larger, more organized, and their safety was no longer guaranteed. The sisters' glow intensified, surrounding the grandmother with a protective aura. The human stepped forward, placing himself between them and the approaching danger. "We won't let you take her," he said firmly. Though his voice trembled with fear and resolve, the eldest sister nodded, raising her hands to channel the energy of the device they had discovered. The youngest sister positioned herself beside him, ready to defend with courage that belied her delicate form. The intruders moved closer, but as soon as they crossed the barrier, they felt the bond that connected the human, the sisters, and the grandmother. Their steps faltered, unsure how to overcome a force stronger than technology or strength. The human realized that this was the miracle they had all built together, love and courage intertwined into an unbreakable shield. The grandmother whispered softly, "Together, always," and the sisters echoed her words in their alien language. Their voices combined, forming a resonance that strengthened the protective aura. The human felt it pulse beneath his hands, as if their hearts and spirits were fused into one. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the device, sending a wave of light across the garden. The intruders retreated, unable to withstand the force, their intentions thwarted by something they could neither understand nor break. Relief flooded the human's chest as he realized they were safe, at least for now. The sisters lowered their hands, their glow softening but steady, and the grandmother smiled faintly, brushing her fingers against his arm. "You did well," she said, her voice filled with pride and gratitude. The human sat down slowly, exhausted but exhilarated, knowing that he had fought not just for survival, but for family, for love, and for hope. Days passed, and the house filled with warmth and laughter. The sisters shared more about their world, showing him lights that danced in the air, small devices that healed, and ways to experience the universe beyond imagination. The human taught them about Earth, its simple joys, its small comforts, and the beauty of human connection. The grandmother's health improved steadily, the care of the human and the sisters working wonders. Each small success brought smiles and quiet joy. The human realized how much he had changed. His life no longer ordinary, but filled with purpose, love, and wonder. One evening, they sat together in the garden, the sky ablaze with stars. The sisters projected tiny lights among the constellations, making the night shimmer as if the universe itself celebrated their bond. The grandmother rested peacefully, her hand held gently by the human, and he felt a deep contentment he had never known. "You came to us by mistake," he whispered softly, "but you changed my life completely." The eldest sister smiled, her eyes glowing softly. "Not a mistake," she said. "Fate brought us together." The youngest sister leaned against him, her small hand holding his firmly, and he knew they were right. In that moment, the human understood the true miracle of their arrival. A misdelivered family of aliens had become more than strangers. They were his family, his hope, and his heart. The danger, the challenges, and the unknown had tested them, but also strengthened them, forging a bond unbreakable by fear or distance. The stars twinkled above, a silent witness to the miracle they had created together. And as the night deepened, the human whispered one last time, "We are ready for anything." The sisters and the grandmother nodded, their hands brushing his, their hearts united in courage and trust. The misdelivery that had seemed like chaos at first had become a blessing. A story of unexpected arrivals, courage, and the power of connection had reached a beautiful turning point. And though the future held unknown challenges, one thing was certain: the human, the sisters, and their grandmother would face it together, forever. And as the quiet house glowed softly under the moonlight, a new life began, full of adventure, trust, and the extraordinary bond of family, proving that sometimes fate works in mysterious ways to bring the impossible into reality.